We are just a couple of days away from Christmas, which is super exciting. And so on this episode, I've decided to bring on a very, very special guest. Mayfair Clements is a speaker and coach. She has supported both individuals and corporations around the world to cultivate a high performance culture that promotes holistic success. Her private clients have ranged from professional athletes and entrepreneurs to working professionals. She is also my wife. And so I'm Winston Ben Clements, and this is Born to Win. Today on Born to Win, I'm joined by a very special guest. She's the love of my life. Love her loads, and I really appreciate her taking the time from her busy schedule to just come and share with us today. Welcome, babe.
Hey, Lo. It's good to be
here. It's good to have you. And I just thought to begin with, there'll be people who are listening to this who perhaps are new or are new to following this platform. So could you share just a quick, very short who you are, maybe how we met even?
Okay, yeah, sure. So, hey everyone, really good to be on the Born to Win podcast. I know I'm biased, but I am a massive fan of, the impact that it's been having already. So just a brief overview on who I am. My name is Mayfair Clements. This guy very kindly gave me his last name. So yeah, my name is Mayfair Clements. By profession, I'm a high performance coach. So my passion is really working with people who, I guess in summary, it's equipping the called. So really working with people who have a call on their life, whether that's in sports, whether that's in business, whether that's in, fashion or music, and really equipping them with the skills that they need to really maximize that. So often it's just the 1% gains. Like what happens if, you wake up half an hour earlier? What happens if your mindset is 1% sharper? So that's what I do. But then I also founded the 20-something Coach Club, because when I started my coaching business, I was, actually 19 years old. I didn't see much representation, one for Black women, but also two for people who were as young as I was. So I had to kind of work through a lot of limiting beliefs on my own. Those questions of how on earth am I going to convince someone to pay a 20-year-old to give them life coaching services. So I started the 20-something Coach Club kind of 3 years deep into my business. 3-4 years deep into my business, to kind of just help people along the way, but also to create a community of people that, to be able to look around you and see, okay, like that person looks like me, that person has the same quote unquote limitation as me, and they're doing it and pulling each other up. Really excited to be doing that. It's allowed me to meet a lot of amazing coaches. And then in terms of how we met, it's actually really linked to my journey with coaching. So one thing I always say to people kind of who ask for advice in terms of like dating or relationships is follow your bliss, like follow the place that your heart feels led, and you put yourself, follow purpose because it's the best way to live. But when you follow purpose, I think you put yourself on a different path, right? So when I started kind of like following what it was that God called me to do, which was coaching and empowering people, that's where my paths kind of crossed with Winston. So I met him through an event. I had a life coach at the time, my first coach, and Winston also had his first coach, and our coaches happened to be friends. Which is also funny because they weren't from the UK, so just the chances of them being friends was just crazy. So anyway, my coach ran an event and Winston's coach invited him to that event. So that's where we met. You've probably seen it on our Instagram post that have gone a little bit viral. That I didn't even talk to him at that event. I think we were both kind of talking to different people, but in all honesty, I was a bit nervous. Like I'd never met anyone like Winston. I didn't know how to like approach the situation. So kind of left that event not having spoken. But I kept thinking about him actually because I had heard about his story actually because his coach was a guest coach on the program that I was doing, and he kept referring to this guy who was like, there's this guy, he's got this disability, but he's just started his speaking career and it's incredible, and it just makes you think like, what are my excuses that I did. So I'd had him referenced to, and then I saw his TED talk and everything about him that he was doing. So I was like, yo, like, it's great to see him doing this, also another person of color. So I just DM'd him, kind of just saying, hey, sorry we didn't get to chat, but just keep going. And I didn't even know why I felt led to encourage him, because on the face of it, he was doing amazingly, like his business was thriving, and it's not something I would usually do, but I just felt led to tell him to keep going. And then after that, he invited me to lunch, and the rest was a history.
The rest was history indeed. And yeah, and I think now that I reflect back on just the probabilities of us meeting by, through people who were coaching us at the time and people who were not in the UK while we were coaching with them. One was in Colombia, my coaches, and your coach was, I think, in the US at the time.
Yeah, she was based in LA.
Based in LA at the time. Yeah, just the chances are so small, but I think it really goes back to what you said earlier about just following purpose and that being leading you to your bliss and opening doors even where perhaps you did not expect. And just to skip a bit forward, so we're now married. Got married in August 2020, coming up to 3-4 month anniversary, which is pretty cool. And I guess, how would you describe, because I feel like there's a lot of overlap and a lot of synergy in our purpose and in the kind of impact we want to leave on the world. How would you describe, and I know I'm putting you on the spot, but how would you describe our joint purpose, if there is such a thing?
Oh, okay, that's a great question. I mean, I think it's funny because I hear kind of, I don't know if this is in your intro, if you said it in an episode, but you kind of talk about what the Born to Win podcast is about, which is impact, influence, and
inspiration,
which is interesting because kind of 4 years ago when I started my business, I had 3 words that described what I was doing, and it was impact, influence, and abundance. So you can already see like close. The overlap. Like when I heard it, I was like, has he like stolen that from me? But those were like my 3 values. Like I wanted my impact. I wanted, when people experience Mayfair, I wanted it to be about impact. I wanted it to be about influence and abundance. So there's that overlap. But in terms of like our joint vision together, I mean, one thing that I have, really, really come to understand is I don't think the person that you marry completes you by any stretch of the imagination. I think we are created whole. But I think I do believe in the idea that God has a plan and a purpose for our lives. And I do believe that sometimes to reach the like max of that plan and that purpose that God has for our life, there's someone who puts into your life to kind of get to that point. So I remember when we kind of were in that, I'll call it the crossover phase between when we were kind of friends to him kind of like flirting and like, I call it flantering, flirty banter. To us kind of thinking, okay, like, could there be something more? The big feeling that I couldn't shake was just that, Winston would push me to an impact that I couldn't have done on my own, and I would do the same for him. It was like a missing puzzle piece. Like a really tangible way that I can put that is Winston is like a brilliant connector. I always say like there's not a single person on this earth who he can't just charm and connect with. And connections is something that I know I need to go to another level in my purpose. And then for me, like I'm a strategist, so I'm always like, I can take concepts and think, okay, cool, this is the crazy idea that we have. And there's something that we just found out news about, which I'm sure we'll talk about later. But it's like, this is the crazy idea that we have. Now let's take it to a granular level. What do we have to do today to next month? And he kind of needed that. And even on an emotional level, there's so many things that was just like, we like kind of had to bind together for the impact. Of course, there was love there, and all of that emotion. But I think beyond all of the feelings, what binds us together is like we know that there is so much work to be done in the personal development space, right? Creating personal development in a way that truly brings grace. Because I think that, if I was to sum it up in terms of like our joint purpose, especially in terms of business, it is to present a different kind of personal development, right? One that provides grace. Because in my experience, and I think Winston will maybe attest to this, personal development is amazing for a while. Like, you'll listen to the video, like you'll feel pumped up, like you'll read the book, you're like, yeah, I'm going to change my life. And then you have all of this weight on your shoulder when a week goes by and life's getting heavy, or 2 weeks goes by and you don't wake up at 5 a.m. and you just feel like staying in bed. And then instead of it motivating you, those words that you read, that video that you listened to, it's like a voice that's like, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, you're not good enough. And it comes with weight. But we wanted to create a stream of personal development that was full of grace, right? A stream of personal development that said, hey, this is what's possible for you. You truly do have something stronger than any circumstance on the inside of you. But hey, you don't have to do it on your own. Hey, there's not all of this pressure on you. And that's what we want to build people up to. Personal development with grace. So yeah, I would say that's our joint mission, like to provide hope to people, to make sure that when people finish encountering us, whether it's an event, whether it's a podcast episode, yeah, you leave feeling excited, yeah, you leave feeling inspired, but there's not that heaviness or that pressure of having to change your life in 5 minutes. It's, hey, I hope you feel inspired by this, but there's also grace for the hard days. And I think we're every day still working out what that really means, and I think that grace element is only really possible with our faith. And pointing people back to, I always say, like, I'm not a guru, pointing back to people to the fact that we don't have all of the answers, but we kind of know a guy who does, and we hope that we can point you to him. So hope that kind of answers the question.
Yeah. No, that's pretty much the sense that I had in terms of what we're looking. I'd even go as far as saying we're looking to shake up the personal development world.
Yeah.
Because when we talk about creating a flavor of personal development that is grace-led, it kind of sounds like really nice and really gentle and they're the good guys of personal development. But I think to actually be able to have to have that impact, it's going to mean rearranging a few things in the personal development world. It's going to mean, just shaking things up, and it's going to be polarizing our version, our flavor of personal development world, because there are people who are very happy with the status quo, with how things are, but we're here to offer a different option, and of course our faith being the big thing that kind of grounds us, I think it's fair to say. So I think you summed it up quite well. And so I think we've kind of been touching on a lot of the ways in which we are similar, but interestingly, do you think there are ways in which we are different?
Oh,
yeah. Or maybe we're exactly the same. You tell me. Maybe we're just like two peas in a pod.
Okay, so I was I can't remember if someone was telling me this or I listened to it on a podcast episode, but it was talking about the different phases of a relationship, and I don't remember all of the phases, but I remember the first two. And it said the first one being the honeymoon phase, where you just feel in love. You're like, oh my gosh, this person is so similar to me, like it's amazing. And then you have the differentiation phase, which is where you start to notice, oh yeah, I remember the third as well, but it was like the differentiation phase is where you start to notice the differences that you have with this person, the ways that you aren't alike, the ways that you still have to do work to integrate. And then the third one was like the integration phase, where you learn what it is to be yourself in this relationship with someone who is different to you. So I think we kind of had the honeymoon phase, and ironically, I think we kind of had our differentiation phase during our honeymoon. So we took, was it 2 weeks?
Yeah, we had 2 weeks in Spain.
We had 2 weeks in Spain for our honeymoon, and by the way, I recommend everyone to take a honeymoon if you can, even if it's vacation. Because it's a lot planning a wedding, everything that goes into it. Like, give yourself time to just rest, integrate with one another without the pressure of, like, sorting out bank accounts and moving houses and whatnot. So yeah, during our honeymoon phase was when it really hit me that this guy who I had just seen as, like, the male version of me, had no issues, was actually different to me. Like, he communicated differently to me. Like, he had different needs to me, and he wouldn't always just automatically know what I needed. So I'm not gonna lie, like, at first it was difficult. It was like frustrating, like, because it was like, before this point it was like, he's the same as me. Like, he knows when I need a hug, like, he knows when I need chocolate. Like, why isn't he getting it? So yeah, I think one thing that we have differences which are great and really work to our advantage, and differences that we also need to do work to be able to still create magic with one another. So I think some of the differences that I actually really love about us is, I'm definitely like a let's go for it, like, spontaneous kind of person. Like, yeah, like, I'm like okay, I want to do this. An example of this is, like, I was working and I quit my job. It took me no more than 48 hours. I'd been thinking about it, but within 48 hours I decided this is what I was doing, and it was actioned. So that's how I am. Like, when I want to do something, I'm gonna do it, and I'll think about everything else later. All I have to have is the certainty that this is the right decision. I just need to know in my gut, and if my gut tells me, I'll jump. But Winston is a lot more deliberate. Let's stop, like, let's think. Okay, yeah, this is the right decision, and I support you, babe. But what can we do to de-risk this? Like, what can we do to make sure we're not completely jumping off a cliff? So it can be frustrating at times. I'm like, babe, like, this is what we need to do next. Like, we need to move country. Like, we need to quit job. Like, we need to buy a sofa. And I'm like, do you believe, like, don't you think this is the right decision? He's like, yeah, I do, but... And that can be frustrating at first, but I think it really balances us out and ensures that we do the big risky decisions that we need to really progress, but also it's de-risked. And then I think in terms of something that we've had to work on is just communication styles and love languages. Like, I think I'm very much you have guys who are less masculine and women who are less feminine, but I am very, like, in my feminine, and Winston's very in his masculine. So sometimes that creates differences in the way that we communicate, or, like, what we need. So I've learned, like, to sometimes just say, like, Winston's, like, jokey most of the time, and it's fine, like, because that's how I am. But girls, like, you know how it is, like, when you just have those phases, like, I just need you to treat me like a teddy bear. Like, I just need you to be gentle with me. Like, don't make, like, risque jokes. Like, just be gentle with me. And it would frustrate me because it's, why are you making all these jokes? Like, why are you not, like, just being sweet and cuddly? But I had to learn in those moments to reflect and be like, hey, Mayfair, where are you at? Okay, cool. Maybe I'm a bit more emotional, feeling a bit more tender. So just say that to him. Like, just say, hey, babe, like, could you be gentle with me? Like, that's, he'll always hear me say that when I need it. Like, could you be gentle with me? And then he has that signal to be like, okay, she's not in her usual jokey, like, place. Like, she's in a bit more of, like, an emotional space or whatever. So yeah, those are, like, some of our differences. We're similar in a lot of ways, like, in terms of the fact, like, passion is the same, like, mission is the same, like, how committed we are to what we believe we've been put on this earth for is the same, our values are the same. It's just, communication styles and approaches to doing things. I think we want the same things, but our approaches can be different. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think communication was a big one for me to understand it, and also just generally just how to be with each other, because I think maybe this is from, like, a masculine brain perspective, because I'm thinking, I'm Winston, I'm always goofy, I'm always jokey. So I'm jokey on Monday, I'm jokey on Tuesday, hey, I'm jokey 7 days a week, right? So why were my jokes landing on Monday, but now on Wednesday it's they're now all of a sudden really offensive,
Yeah.
right? Now that I'm the same guy, it's the same humor. So and I think one really good tool or technique is the one that you mentioned, just kind of, you giving me that cue of actually, I'm not in the same headspace that I was,
Yeah.
2 days ago. So, and having almost that trigger phrase, please be gentle with me,
Yeah.
is almost like a wake up for me to be like, okay, cool. So we're no longer on
Mm.
Monday's, schedule. We're now on a different schedule. It's
Yeah.
a different day. And that was really helpful for me because without that, I would just be lost because I'd be thinking, I know for sure I am the same person.
Yeah, and I think when you realize that it does take reflection, because sometimes I'm not even realizing, like, wait, it's me that's feeling different. It's just like, why is this extra annoying today?
Yeah.
But that's why, like, I hope, I don't know what your audience is like, but like that's why for me, like, ladies, like, we always work in cycles, whereas guys have like a 24-hour cycle, right? Whereas women, you can be literally hormonally, emotionally a different person from one week to the next, even one day to the next.
Mhm.
So I think it's important to acknowledge that, be okay with that, and then also communicate to your partner in that. Like, Winston always knows what's going on in my cycle, and it always helps with our communication and just knowing what the other person needs during that time.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'm gonna switch gears a little bit. And kind of bring it back. So Born to Win is it's all about owning your story. Like you said,
Mm.
The three words: impact, influence, inspiration, is what this platform was created to help people unleash.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to hear your perspective and your outlook on, what does owning your story mean to Mayfair
Mm.
Clements?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I think for me, I would probably pin the meaning of owning your story. To me, it kind of came in a moment, which was when I published my book, my debut book, The Becoming. I think I published it
Get it on Amazon.
2018. It's still on Amazon. I mean, it's funny when you put out something and then it's out there and you read back at it, you're like, oh my gosh, cringe. But anyway, no, it's a body of work that I'm honestly proud of. But the reason why, to me, that really encaptures what it means to own your story was I wrote things in that book that for a long time were scars, or were things that really, like, there were things that I had no control of. There were
Mm-hmm.
things that affected the way that I showed up in the world,
Mm-hmm.
without my control. But when I published that story, for me, it was like, instead of like my testimony and all of the things, all of the dark things and all of the great things that had happened in my life, kind of controlling the decisions that I made, it was
Yeah.
like, no, now I get to stand on this testimony. Now I don't get to be ashamed. Now I don't get to, kind of look away and hope you don't dig deep into that. Now I get to say, yeah, this is my story and I stand on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these are the things that, um, made me who I was, with pride. So I think owning your story is really about that transition from, honestly, that transition from victimhood and woe is me because this happened, to actually, yeah, this happened. And it's why I'm able to be like this. This happened, and it's why I'm able to have deep compassion for people. This happened, and it's why I'm able to talk with this conviction that you will be okay, because I've been there. So yeah, I think owning your story is that switch from victimhood and things defining you to, actually, no, yeah, that is my story. And sometimes there are still scars, and sometimes it does still hurt. But actually, I'm proud of it because it's what created this.
Yeah, no, that's pretty powerful, and I think I really liked what you said about um because I feel like we all have these defining moments in our lives, and depending on how old you are, for some people it's like 2, 3, 5 moments
Yeah.
that you can look back on. I know for me a big one was when I did my first TED talk, and I previous to that, you guys would have heard me talk about it on this platform, but previous to that, I was in a full-time job working in a tech career, but I had this, I guess, this burning sense that I had a greater purpose and calling on my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I knew I would have to, through that, I would have to share my story with the masses.
Yeah.
And so for me, getting through that first TED talk was like almost like the growing up moment. It's like, oh my God,
Yeah.
this can actually be a thing. I can actually own my story, and not let all of those defining moments, all of those scars, um, put me in victimhood, but actually shape me into someone who can hopefully help others, right?
Yeah.
And I love what you said about the book. So in that book, and by the way, I'm going to repeat the name of the book. It's The Becoming, which is available on Amazon. In fact, I'm going to go a step further and drop the link in the show notes for you guys who are interested in checking it out, which I highly recommend. So in that book, I'm curious for you to pull out. It could even be just one of those defining moments for you. Like, what was it? One of those turning points, and maybe what was the lesson from it? Or what were you able to own through it?
Yeah, another great question. I mean, I'm going to cheat a little bit on this question because as you were kind of speaking, one came to mind, and it actually wasn't in the book, but my book kind of led me there. And that was going to New York for the first time. So I remember literally I published my book on September the 2nd, 2018, and I got on a flight to New York September 4th, 2018. And I had just turned 21.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember kind of, to give you some context, like when I went to New York, like I had no business going there. Like I didn't have like a job, like I didn't have like a solid way of making money. I had just launched my business kind of 4 months earlier, and launched my business properly, officially 4 months earlier. And there was just something in me that just kept telling me, Mayfair, go. Like, go to New York. And I got a 3-month visa. I kind of took a year out from uni. And I went just because I had that feeling that this is where I had to go to move me to where God was calling me to in my coaching business. So I got on a plane to New York, expecting that things would kind of blow with my coaching business. I felt led to go here, God. And it wasn't that. Like, my coaching business was literally like, it just fell flat. And the only way I was surviving was literally through my book. I'd go, I'd have $4 to get on a subway, to go to an open mic show. I'd have 3-4 books with me. I would sell those books, and then that's what would keep me surviving day by day. Going to a poetry show, selling the books, and just being led each day. But the reason that was kind of like a defining moment for me was because I remember kind of walking through New York. I was living in Brooklyn, East Flatbush at the time. Didn't have money on this occasion to get the subway. And I was walking, literally, I kid you not, this is one of my lowest moments, but I was literally on, like, just looking at the ground looking for $1. And I remember just thinking, like, God, like, I feel like I've moved back. Like, I went here to New York, like, to push forwards, because that's everything in my gut was telling me, like, you have to go here to push your business forwards. And here I am, like, looking for $1. Like, this isn't it. Like, it was like I'd aimed for the stars and I ended up on the gutter. But the reason that was a defining moment for me was because even in that moment of just, like, honestly, like, just feeling hopeless and I don't know how I'm gonna survive the next few days, there was a voice in me that was like, Mayfair, if you survive this, if you survive this, that you're gonna go all the way. Like, that this is, like, it's beyond money, like, it's beyond, comfortability. Like, there's something deeper in this for you, and there's something that you're willing to push for. So yeah, that was a defining moment for me, going to New York, like, having that bottom point, and still something inside me saying, Mayfair, don't give up. And I think everyone has that point in their dream where it's like, lads, okay, how bad do you actually want this? Like, how bad do you actually want to have an impact, right? When you have that month, different people need different lows for that question to come up. But I think if you can answer, yeah, I want it, like, even when it looks like this, you open doors for yourself. So That was one of mine.
Yeah, and it sounds like because I feel like that is so relatable, not just to me, but I'm sure to everyone that's listening,
Yeah.
because we all have these moments where you have that voice calling you to a place,
Yeah.
or to do something different to what you've been doing before. So in your case, that was New York. In my case, that was to leave my successful corporate career,
Yeah.
and go into this new world of public speaking, right? But I think one of the key takeouts for me from what you said was, actually, I think you worded it really well when you said, there was a point where you felt like you shot for the stars, but you found yourself feeling like you ended up in the gutter.
Yeah.
Right. And I think there's a bit of, when you hear that voice internally, and, for me with speaking, straight away as that intuition grew,
Yeah.
I was picturing myself as this, really successful keynote speaker, traveling the world, having an amazing lifestyle and helping people. Right. Um, but we know, the way things unfold in life, it's ups and downs. It's never a straight line trajectory, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a really, hopefully a really useful thing for someone listening to this to take away, who might be in that moment where they are now walking the streets, looking for $1,
Yeah.
whatever that scenario looks like in their world,
Definitely.
right?
Yeah.
To show that it's an up and down curve. Would that be fair to say?
100%. And actually, like, there's a second book that I'm working on now. In one of the chapters, is gonna be like, don't despise the the years of small beginnings, because we know the phrase, don't despise the days of small beginnings. But let me be real with you, because that's what I always vow to be, like, whether that's on my platform, my husband's platform, or wherever else. Sometimes it's not days, the small beginnings. Sometimes it's months. Sometimes it's years.
Yeah.
But the vow that we live like in such like an instant culture. Like, if you don't make 6 figures in your first year of coaching, or if you don't make 6 figures in your first year of speaking, you failed. But sure, some people achieve success in that way. Other people, it takes them years, it takes them decades. And if you're listening to this and it discourages you, the fact that it might take you years to get to a point where you can actually say you're successful in your craft, or even decades, I'm going to be real with you, and I'm going to put my coach voice on and say, like, have a hard look at how bad you want this. Have a hard look at what you call mission.
Yeah.
Because when you know you want something, you're willing for it to take years. You're willing to create decades. Because when you know its purpose, I would rather be at square one on the trajectory that I know I'm called to, rather than like level 10, on a trajectory that I know is, that I'm not called to. So one thing that we really have to get comfortable with is letting things take time. It's okay to get it wrong the first time. It's okay to get it wrong the second time. But your vow has to be, for as long as it takes, I'm doing this. Because there's people on the other side of you telling your story. There's people on the other side of you, pushing past those limitations. So 100%, like, sometimes it takes time, and it's about not being discouraged in those moments. Like, again, because of this instant gratification culture we live in, if you have one of those moments, like where you have like a month where you're broke, or you can't pay your rent, you're failing, and it's just not true. Like, the challenge is to always push through that month. Take a break if you need to, go on the sidelines and catch your breath if you need to, but don't come out of the game.
Yeah, there's definitely something about just keeping showing up, in what you said. So, okay, cool. I'm just gonna move forward a little bit. Some of the, and thank you, by the way, for being so open and vulnerable, and in sharing, I guess, some moments of adversity, right? Because people might look at you and see, this high performance coach married to an amazing international speaker. Like, her whole life is all set, right? But it's good that you're able to kind of take us behind the curtain, and show us some of the struggles that you experienced. And kind of staying on that theme, but kind of bringing it back to us. So, like I shared earlier, we got married just a few months ago in August. We're in December now. And by the way, happiest day of my life, bar none.
Cute.
So, had to say that to get the brownie points. Uh,
You can't see what's going on right now. It's amazing.
but I guess and you can tell me whether this is fair to say, because our story is so quote unquote unconventional,
Yeah.
it has attracted a lot of attention,
Mm.
good and bad, right? But a lot of attention, especially in the last few weeks.
Yeah.
And so yeah, this is just almost like a check-in. I want to know, how have you found all of that?
Mm-hmm.
And then part two of that question would be, what would you say to someone who's listening to this right now,
Mm-hmm.
who might be afraid of putting themselves out there,
Yeah.
putting their business out there, because of all the extra attention
Yeah.
one might attract? Because I feel, and I think we've had experience of working with entrepreneurs, and that's one of the themes that's come out. I'm afraid to put myself out there on that public platform because it opens you up to all sorts of attention.
Yeah.
So how have you found it to start with?
Ooh, yeah, and I'm glad you asked this question because I've thought about addressing it in many different ways, and I'm like, no, I don't know. The first part of your question, which was all of the attention, because our wedding pictures, went viral, so obviously, like, it attracted attention to across our platforms. And it's interesting because obviously when we kind of got together, it was, and this is the thing, like when I kind of look at some of the comments, I'm like, everything that you have written down, like about me and like, whatever your misconceptions about me, or like, oh, she's a gold digger, or like, she's giving up her life, like all of this are things that have run through my head. Like, it's not a light choice to marry anyone, but especially not to get into a relationship like where there's differences. So these are all things that I've kind of like ran through my head, like even kind of getting together. We had like multiple like 15-hour, and I mean hour,
Honestly, they were long conversations.
Hour-long conversations of just like unpacking everything. And me picturing all of the scenarios, like asking myself, like, can I handle this? Can I do this? Da 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 da. But for me, like my one prayer, even since the beginning, was, God, give me the grace for this relationship, because whatever the relationship is, you always need grace, but everyone needs a different grace. And I knew for me, I would need a grace for this relationship, like being with Winston, but then also how I knew our platforms would grow. That's just something that like we knew, regardless of how it would happen. We just knew our platforms would grow. Like, that's just what we know is on the cards for us.
Yeah.
So I kind of like conceptualized, accepted that like on my own, but it feels quite different. Like when it actually starts to play out, you're getting messages like left, right, and center, ones that are good and ones that are just honestly like plain horrible.
Was it ever upsetting?
Yeah, it was. Honestly, like it was. That's why I say like you can never really prepare yourself for what people say. But I think for me the most upsetting thing was like less like the comments and what they said themselves, because of course I get stuff that's like I could have imagined like what people would think. But it was more my thoughts were more, it's actually a shame. It's actually a shame that you've made like a judgment based off of like 6-7 pictures that you've seen on Instagram and not taken the chance to just not taking the chance to see something. Even if it's listening to a podcast episode like this, or just kind of seeing who we are, what we're about, what I'm about, what Winston's about. But instead you've taken 7 pictures based off of what Winston looks like, based off of what I look like, and you've made a judgment about, me being a gold digger or Winston being south, like whatever it is. And it just makes me sad, like for humanity. It's like human beings like have so much depth, like there's so much to human beings. So I think it's a shame like when we make a snap judgment on people and then we walk away, like you lose. So yeah, it made me sad. There was some like that upset me, but I guess in terms of kind of dealing with it, I just recognize like it comes with the territory. I learn when I need a break from socials. I learn when not to look at these comments, and I learn that just because someone says something about me, it doesn't make it true. And then what was your second? thing.
Yeah, and so you mentioned a bit about taking a break and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
the
yeah,
second part of
I
the question
remember.
was around, yeah,
Yeah.
what would your advice be to someone, because you have so many entrepreneurs,
Yeah, who are
people
afraid
who
of putting
are,
themselves out
yeah,
there.
like I know speakers who, you know, they want to speak, they want to have an impact, or people who are starting a business,
Yeah.
and they're fired up about it.
Mm.
You know, they have that same excitement, that sense of calling that you had when you went to New York, or that I had when I decided to put myself forward for a TED talk.
Yeah.
Um, but also the awareness that with putting yourself up on that very public platform,
Mm-hmm.
it exposes you in different ways, and so that creates a hesitation.
Yeah.
So what would be your words of advice from someone who's been through some of that?
Yeah. Honestly, the words that come to me is it's not about you.
Mm,
And I know that can sound a bit harsh, but I had this one moment, even for me, like before I met Winston, where I realized being a coach and being someone who was called to use my story to inspire others, I would have to share things that were uncomfortable,
mm-hmm,
um, and be more vulnerable than I would otherwise want to be, share my life in a way that I otherwise wouldn't want to. But I had to ask myself the question, like, do I care more about my ego, like being in my safe bubble, more than I care about someone being impacted through my story?
mm-hmm,
And fundamentally, I cared more about someone being impacted through my story. So
mm-hmm.
that's the question that you have to ask myself, like, do I
Yeah.
care more about people being impacted by my business, by my story, by me putting myself out there, or do I care more about myself staying safe? And it's okay, like, if you answer like, actually no, I want my life, like I want my
Mm-hmm,
privacy, that's fine too. But never, it's a decision that you have to make.
mm-hmm,
So my advice, to someone who's wanting to make an impact, but you're scared of putting yourself out there, is firstly make a decision.
mm-hmm,
Like, what's the greatest sacrifice for you? And then when you've made that decision, get around community,
mm-hmm,
like get around people who have gone through it as well, who've made the same decision as you, because it riles you up, it stirs you up,
mm-hmm,
and it encourages you to kind of keep going like
mm-hmm,
during those moments when it's tough.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, I hope it kind of helps. It does come with the territory,
Yeah.
and there's always sacrifices. Like, it's so easy to glorify what someone else is, or to look at someone who's a celebrity or has a platform and think, oh, I wish I had that. But understand that it comes with a sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
But so does deciding not to put yourself out there. So everything comes with a sacrifice. You just gotta
Mm.
pick which pie you want.
Yeah, and I just remembered a very specific question that I got asked. It was actually by someone in our Talk Let's Do More
Mm.
mastermind group. And the question was, it wasn't really a question, it's more of a reflection. So she is starting, or she's looking to start a business. I think it was related to wellness and nutrition,
Mm-hmm.
something in that space. And so she was thinking, I think we're just talking about something pretty basic, like her website. I think that's what it was
Mm.
about. And she was saying she wanted to keep the website very, her words were professional. So
Mm.
she didn't want her story on the website.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
wanted it to be all about her expertise, and she is an expert. She knows, her level of understanding and depth in those areas is,
Mm.
is crazy.
Yeah,
It's
next level.
amazing, yeah. And so I guess her reflection was, I feel like I want to showcase my expertise, but
Mm.
I'm less comfortable showcasing the personal side. So I don't want people to know about the face behind the brand.
Yeah.
So yeah, so this is just generally, what do you think of that approach?
Mm.
Is there a time when that might be the right thing to do, or are you more of a, I want to know the story behind the brand, or I know people have different opinions on this.
Yeah. Again, great question.
Mm,
I think my answer to that would be, yeah. I think it's a decision that all business owners have to make, especially as you're growing. Is like, where's the line between your business and your brand and
mm-hmm,
you as a person? And you should have that. Just because you're in business, like, it doesn't mean like you don't have the right to keeping parts for yourself or keeping parts for your loved ones.
Yeah.
That's something that I'm learning as well, even separating my pages, like having stuff that is just for my people, stuff that's just for my husband, for my family, and then stuff that's for the world. So that's important. But I would say this, from a business perspective, is people buy from people always. And I've worked in huge corporations, like where people are spending hundreds of thousands of pounds, and the sales that we were making were B2B, so it's businesses to businesses. But still, it's a salesperson who is selling to somebody else. And the biggest thing that they say is when you're likable, that's when people buy from you. So you're never going to run away from the fact that people buy from people. Like, it's just always going to be true, more so in services, but in general, like, people buy from people. So that's something to consider, like how, even if you are going to separate your pages and be professional, how can I still be a person? And then it's up to you to kind of use a lot of my clients find it annoying at first when they work with me, because they don't give you like a straight answer, like, yeah, this is the line. That's up to you to sit down, like, reflect and work out, okay, how much of the person do people need to see to feel connected to me and feel connected to my brand, if that makes sense. So people will always buy from people. It's up to you to kind of, discern how much of you should you show. Obviously, if you're part of Talk Let's Do More, we're able to kind of like coach you and help you in that more. But yeah, just recognizing that it's kind of a decision that you almost have to make.
Yeah, and I think I'm with you on that. I feel I'm one of those people, and maybe this is why I'd even create a whole podcast about storytelling. But I've always been curious about the story, behind the person, behind the brand, behind the company, because that is what I'm more able to connect to, even beyond the expertise or the amazing product. I mean, you think of Apple, they are where they are because they tell a great story.
Yeah, and it's actually like human beings, I think, are always interested in the origin story of the thing. So even if you have like a company, or maybe you're a business owner and you're making sales without people really knowing who you are, I guarantee the people who are buying from you are gonna buy more when they understand from you, and more people will buy from you, because it's that moment of like just refreshing. Like when you look back at even like some massive organizations or businesses that I buy from, when I find out, why did this person start it? Like, what they're passionate about, what's their heart? And I connect to that. I'm like, yo, I love you 10 times more. Like, take all my money.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Now I love that. I love that. Looks like we're on this kind of same page with that. And people who follow you, babes, call you babes.
Babes. Yeah, babes.
People who follow you on your Instagram pages, they'll just know that you've got one of the coolest Instagrams out there. Like, honestly,
Stop.
like, you're my wife, and we live in the same house, but I literally, you're one of your profile on Instagram is one of my favorite ones to just to browse. It makes me happy. It's entertaining. The content has value. And I believe you tell a great story out there. So a question related to that: how do you leverage storytelling to build your brand and connect with your tribe? Because I feel you have one of the most engaged tribes or communities on Instagram, that I've come across. So how do you leverage storytelling for that, or do you leverage storytelling for that?
Yeah. I mean, I think two things come to mind specifically in terms of Instagram. Number one is the biggest thing like that I get from people, and I'm like, why don't you show up more on stories? Like, whether it's coaches or speakers, like, why don't you show up more on stories? It's like, I don't have anything to say, or like my day's just ordinary. So one thing I realized is like, be open to like how many teachable moments there are in your life. Like, it literally could be like, you have an afternoon where this happened to me today. You have an afternoon when you're feeling a bit anxious, and the teachable moment was, okay, instead of just going through the motions, I stopped, I meditated, I spent time in my word, and I was able to recall the day in. So for me, I just start to recognize, oh wait, that's a teachable moment. I didn't feel like going to the gym and I went today. That's a teachable moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I just drop in and share it. So that's one thing that I leverage in terms of storytelling. Like, it doesn't have to be like a massive thing, like you changed the world or whatever. It's just like,
Mm-hmm.
what are some teachable moments that you had in your day? Share those. And the second thing is, like, never underestimate the power of just connecting with people. Like, there are some points like where I don't have a lesson to give. Like, I literally just drop into my stories and I'm like, hey guys, I haven't spoken to you guys in a while. This is what I've been up to, like planning to just, have a nice hot bath this evening and relax. Like, let me know what you're up to. Like, it's just being a person, like treating the people who follow me as community, people who want to know what's up with you. It's like with your friends, like, it's not every day you text them and you share a lesson with them or they share one with you. Sometimes it's just dropping in like, hey, like, I was thinking about you, like, what's going on with you. So I kind of just treat my community like that as well. And yeah, I just share. Like, I just share with my community. Like, I share moments. And the more you do it, the more you do anything, the better you get at it. And then I think the more you do it as well, like, the more people look for you. Like, I got a message today because I wasn't really on my Instagram, because I do have days like where I'm just heads down, like working on my laptop. I got a message today like, oh, you've been quiet today, and she was like a new follower, and I was like, wait, what? And at first I was a bit like, hey, leave me alone, like, I don't have to be on Instagram every day. But then afterwards I was like, wait, that's great. Like, that means, like, after a while people start looking for you, and it's that thing that creates connection to people, and then ultimately turns your followers into people who are ambassadors and evangelists for what you do. So yeah, I just tell stories. I find teachable moments.
No, I think that's really good, and almost feels like last week on Born to Win, I spoke about it was an episode around getting out of your rut. And one of the key themes that came out for me was around imposter syndrome. And I just feel, it's very easy, particularly if you're kind of newish into business or newish into entrepreneurship, starting a business. To be honest, many different scenarios. We've had many people come to us in our communities who've hesitated. I know I want to speak, but I don't know if I'm ready yet. Or I know I want to coach, and then same again. But I think what you shared was really powerful, because finding those teachable moments, because we all have them, because no two people have lived the exact same life experience. There'll be something that happened in your life, which I can learn from, and vice versa. And it's not even about age or anything like that. It's just because the life experience is so unique to each of us as individuals. So finding those moments to teach, and then also being authentic as you're connecting with people. Those are just some really cool takeaways, and we're just getting to the end here, because I know we could literally talk till the cows come home. That old saying. Never really understood that one, but yeah, maybe someone can drop it in the comments. Let me know what that means. And so after a crazy year, has been crazy 2020.
Oh gosh,
madness. We're only 2 days away from Christmas. Yippee! Woo-hoo. Put up a Christmas tree the other day.
Well, a couple of weeks ago.
Was it a couple of weeks?
Yeah.
Right. Couple of weeks.
When this episode comes out.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we put up our Christmas tree, and we're getting in the spirit, and matching jumpers, Christmas jumpers, and trying to get into that festive cheer after what's been a really up and down year, not just for us, but for everyone listening to this, probably. And so question one on this is, two-part question. First of all, how are we celebrating Christmas? This is just for me, but people might want to know. And
wait.
Yeah. And secondly, actually do that first one. Yeah.
Okay.
How are we celebrating Christmas, babes?
how we celebrate Christmas.
Yeah, I
So
think I
we
have a sense. I think it's gonna be a family thing, but tell me more.
Yeah, so we're celebrating Christmas with family. We're going down to Swindon to see my parents. I don't know if I should be revealing my, you don't know the street number. But we're all going down to Swindon to hang out with my parents for Christmas, our parents,
Mm-hmm.
for Christmas. So it'll be great. It's going to be like a full house. The
Is
nephews,
yeah.
the cousins, the siblings. So that'd be really nice. I think we're me and Winston are introverts, if you didn't know. Like, so, like, we could be in our house, like, for ages and love it.
Honestly.
But it is nice, I think, during Christmas to just, like, hang out with people for a
Mm-hmm.
couple of days, like, laugh with people, be in other people's energies. So we're really excited for that. And then we're jetting off somewhere. Can we
Oh
tell them
yeah, we
where?
have got a little break coming up at the end of the month.
Yeah.
We're not gonna say where. Follow me or follow Mayfair on Instagram.
Or the Clements, yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna put the details of our social media pages in the show notes. So if for some reason you're interested in knowing where we're jetting off to after Christmas, then follow us, and I'm sure we'll keep you in the loop.
Yes.
And then part B of that question was I know that you're big on gratitude, right? Gratitude is something that you speak about a lot, and know it's
Yeah.
something that is really important and has benefited you at different points in your story, right? Is that fair to say?
Very fair, yeah.
Okay, cool. So how does one stay in gratitude even after such a up and down year like we've had in 2020?
Great question.
It's been crazy with the yeah, I don't even need to say it, do I?
Yeah.
Pandemic, etc.
So much.
Yeah.
That's a great question. I mean, I think for me, like, gratitude will always be tied to my faith. And it'll always be tied to the fact that, like, yeah, one thing I always remember is, like, I couldn't command my next breath, even if I tried. Like, there's not a bone in my body, there's not words that I know that could command my next breath, if I wanted to. So when I remember that, like, it's just humbling, because it's like I can complain about a million things, like this didn't go right, that didn't go right, this didn't go my way, and things which are bigger as well, like losing loved ones. Like I could feel hard done by that, but then I recognize, like, nothing that I get to experience in this life, not a single thing is earned, neither is it my right. So that means, like, when you like experience life from that perspective, you realize, like, everything that comes, every good thing, every good gift, all I have to feel is gratitude, whether it's a new day, like whether it's like an unexpected gift from my husband, or whether it's like hanging out on the sofa watching This Is Us and I really enjoy it. Like, it's just recognizing, like, nothing is given. And then also, I think being present really allows me to feel gratitude as well. So sometimes it's slowing down. Like, one of the things that, like, Winston knows, like, I'm a massive homebody. Like, I love beautiful things. Like, I love experiences. And there's a Drake song, actually, like, it's quite an old Drake song, but it's talking about how, like, one line was like, there's a girl on Instagram who she travels to her favorite country. She travels to Paris because it's her favorite country, and she spends the whole time on Instagram. So I kind of, for me, gratitude is just about not kind of doing that. It's about, like, if I'm enjoying something, it could be a cup of coffee, like, enjoy that cup of coffee. Like, I give myself permission to indulge, like, oh my gosh, this cup of coffee is really good, or like that episode of This Is Us, like, really made me happy, or like the way my husband hugged me, like, made me smile. So I just drop in and I be present. So those are my two tips, is just recognize, like, nothing is guaranteed or a right. And then the second thing is just drop in, like, really enjoy stuff. Like, that's my challenge to you. Like, the next time you have, like, a drink, whether it's water, wine,
Savor
coffee,
it.
like, just slow down and feel it going down your throat.
I love that. I love that so much. And yeah, and hopefully that helps someone, because we've all been hit with different ups and downs this year.
Yeah.
And in those moments, sometimes your sense of appreciation and gratitude can be shaken. So hopefully those couple of tips, powerful tips from Mayfair, will help you reconnect with that gratitude, because it's just so important.
Yeah, it's everything.
Yeah, it's everything. Just gives you perspective, and it just allows you to live in the moment and appreciate life as the precious gift that it truly is. And I think I'm gonna wrap it up here, Mayfair. I mean, you've been amazing. You've been amazing.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, now everything that you shared has been honestly super insightful. And even as I was thinking about how to frame this conversation, there's a lot of things that I genuinely wanted to find out for myself. So I have learned a lot, even though we live in the same house, and we get to speak every day. So this was really helpful for me on a personal level. And just as we conclude, what are some of the ways that people can connect with you to find out more about who you are and perhaps what you've got coming up?
Okay, great. Like Winston mentioned, Instagram is the platform that I'm probably on the most. Like, if you want to catch up with me day to day, find out a bit more about what I'm like within business and outside of business. So I'm sure my Instagram handle will be shared, but in case it's not,
No,
or
I'll
if
put
you
it in the
want it
show
here,
notes, yeah. But you can mention it now if you want.
yeah, it's just Mayfair Clements, at Mayfair Clements. And the other way that you can reconnect with me and what I'm doing is mainly the 20 something coach club. So if you are a coach or aspiring coach, that's a great place to go. You can join our free 14-day trial, see what it's all about. I've got lives that I do every week, teaching a different topic to support you to, attract dream clients, believe in your source, and coach to create change. So the app for that is literally the 20somethingcoachclub.com. I also have a podcast called the 20 something coach.
Oh yes, you do.
Yeah, the 20 something coach podcast. I drop in there weekly, just sharing lessons about business and how to attract dream clients, how to build your business. So yeah, those are the main ways that you can find me. My website is currently under reconstruction. This man, I love him, and I'm so grateful that I married him.
Oh, thanks,
It's causing me all sorts of havoc, having to change everything. Like, I had to change my emails, I had to change my website.
You're married now,
Yeah.
No more maiden name.
So yeah, I'm having to change all of that. So website's under construction. But yeah, follow me on Instagram. I'll update you on everything there.
Yeah, and the other thing we've got coming up is what I mentioned earlier in the conversation, the Talk Let's Do More mastermind.
TLDM.
Yeah, TLDM is relaunching January 2021. So again, I'll drop the link in the show notes if you want to be added to the waiting list so that you can find out more. Then we'll definitely appreciate connecting with you and hopefully getting to hang out with you from January.
Yes, indeed. I think that's the only way to have both of us.
Yeah, that is. So if you want to be coached by both of us, then that's definitely the way to go. Was there anything else? I think that was it from my side. Thank you so much, babes. Let me give you a little kiss on air. Gonna make the noise as well.
Giggly now.
Yeah, and thank you to all of you for listening to this episode. Honestly, there's so many gems. I'll literally I'd literally recommend you listen to this one at least a couple of times and just take notes, because some of the gems that were shared by Mayfair were just huge, even for me. So hopefully that was of value, and yeah, I look forward to catching up with you guys again next week.
Thanks for having me.
Go eat.
Let's eat.
Okay, later, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. And by the way, if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, or some other kind of app, and you got some value from today's episode, then I'd absolutely love if you could drop me a quick review. Until next time.